9th grade, I got kicked out of my Spanish class. I already did a story time on that. I got sent to the guidance counselor and they put me in culinary class. Freshmen typically aren't allowed to take culinary. It's typically reserved for upperclassmen. Since my teacher kicked me out a week late, there weren't a whole lot of other classes for me to go to. So I ended up going there. When I arrived, most of the students had already picked out their hats, their chef coats, so I had to just randomly pick from the bin. I was really scared and intimidated. Anyway, our chef said just grab a random hat and chef jacket, which I did. When she was instructing us on how to make chocolate chip cookies, I stuck my hands inside the pockets and I felt something. I pulled my hand out, I had found a gigantic wad of money. It wasn't no tiny wad. No, it wasn't just ones. I want to get on my teacher's good side. I was the youngest student. I went up to her and I was like, hey, I found this gigantic wad of money in one of the pockets. I showed her the wad and she dead serious looked at me like this. She took it from me and it was the shadiest thing ever. In return, she said, this is part 2 of why you should always check your pocket story. So I gave my teacher the gigantic wad of money. When I first found the money, my thoughts were, of course, I'm rich! That lasted 0.3 seconds before I was like, I need to give this to the teacher. Which I did, and again, her response was super weird. She kind of just took it from me and was like, and I was like, it was like a super awkward moment. And I was like, dang, I already got off on the wrong foot. Like I left and I was like, oh, let me just do my work. Later on in the day, she came back to me and she was like, thank you so much for giving me the money. That was actually from a fundraiser that we did. And I was like, And just to say thank you, I'd like you to take 3 cookies if you want. You can take 3 cookies.
If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. One night, a boy and his friend were on their way to a school dance when they saw a girl on the side of the road looking lost. They stopped the car and asked if she needed a ride, and she asked them to take her home. They said that they were going to a school dance and asked if she wanted to come too. She agreed. But these boys wouldn't know yet that this girl was not an average hitchhiker. So they all got in the car and the girl sat in the back seat. After a while, the girl would constantly say that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. They got to the dance and things were pretty normal, but what happened after would make the boys question reality. When the night was almost over, it was finally time to take the girl home. When they almost arrived, the girl told them where she lived but told them to drop her off close by so she can walk the rest of the way. So that's what they did. But after the girl walked away, the boy who let her borrow his jacket realized that he never asked for his jacket back. His friend said that they could just come back tomorrow for it. The next morning, they came back expecting to get the jacket and leave, but things were not so simple. They came up to the girl's house and knocked on the door, but they were shocked at what they discovered as soon as the door opened. Follow for part 2. If you're ever driving late at night, don't do what they did. 2 boys picked up a girl on the side of the road while they were on their way to a school dance. In the car, she kept saying that she was cold, so one of the boys gave her his jacket. But when the night ended and they were about to drop her off, the girl accidentally left with the jacket. So the boys said that they would just come back the next day to get it. But when they came back and knocked on her door, they discovered something that would make them question what is real and what isn't. An old woman opened the door and asked them who they were looking for. After talking to her for a while, it was revealed that the girl they found on the side of the road was her daughter. But the thing is, she had been dead for 12 years. She was killed in a car accident at the same street corner they first saw her. The old woman pointed to a cemetery down the road and said, that's where we buried her. The boys didn't believe her at first. They'd spent the whole night with this girl, so they knew that she had to be real. But they went to the cemetery and saw the boy's jacket draped over a gravestone. And on the gravestone was the girl's name and the date of her death, exactly 12 years ago to the day.
Why you should be really careful how you treat people, and also why you should stick up for people. When I was in 8th grade, I was really good friends with this kid named Damon. Me, him, and this other friend of mine, we were all at the same table. In English class, we would joke around, talk about the same TV shows and movies. We were the loudest group by far. But near the end of the school year, Damon ended up moving. And it really sucked, but we said goodbye to Damon, who I should tell you was this small, short, funny, wisecracking kid. Didn't matter what you threw at him, he was super witty. So we said goodbye to him, we all went to 9th grade. It was either the end of 9th grade or the middle of sophomore year that I saw Damon again. He had transferred back to our school, saw him at a pep rally, and I was sitting by myself because I despise pep rally. He was like, Josadak, do you remember me? I was like, oh my gosh, David? He was so much taller, face looked different, his voice was deeper. This was obviously a different kid, but really happy to see me. So we started talking, catching up. Then I started noticing that he was getting hit in the back of the head with tiny paper balls. He wasn't even flinching. I looked behind me to see 3 boys throwing paper balls at him. What? Dude, do you see what they're doing? Yeah, I'm used to it. What? This was not the same witty boy that I knew. Oh god, I'm running out of time. Watch part 2 to see my Part 2 of the kids throwing paper balls at my friend's story. So when I told Damon this was happening and he didn't seem to notice, I was very confused. The kid that I used to know would not let this fly. He instead kept his head down, insisted that it was okay, and said that he was used to it. Whatever happened between 8th grade and now completely changed the way that he viewed this behavior. I saw it as unacceptable. He thought it was okay. So instead of accepting that, I turned around and said, hey, what are we in 5th grade? The 3 boys looked at me from the top of the bleachers and said, whatever. That's what high schoolers who act like 5th graders say. And then I said, stop it, it's not funny. They didn't stop. They laughed. But Damon thanked me. I didn't know who this kid was anymore. I can only assume that this type of stuff was happening to him often. That kids at his new school were treating him poorly. And because of that, he thought he was less than. I literally never saw Damon again after that day, but I hope that he knows that he can stand up for himself and that behavior is not okay. Be careful how you treat people, it stays with them. And it can fundamentally change them. Bye. I'm gonna tell you guys why I don't keep food in my room anymore. At least why I don't keep this particular food in my room anymore. So when I was a kid, my dad used to leave the country a lot. Every time he would come back, he'd always bring us some sort of goodie. It'd always be like bracelets, t-shirts, and candy. One time after a trip to, I think it was Dominican Republic, brought us back a bunch of lollipops. These are not normal lollipops like you're thinking in your head. These are these giant brown flat lollipops. Now, instead of eating them, me and my sister decided it would be best to hoard them. Yes, that's right, keep them in our room for as long as possible. For what purpose? I don't know. I think it was probably like, no, we can't eat them now. If something happens and we need them. Bruh. It's not every day that we got candy, apparently. So we kept them in our room. We kind of put them on display, up against the wall, right in between both of our beds, in this very room. This time I was about 6? My sister's about a year and a half older than me, so she was like 7, I guess. Now, these lollipops were given to both of us. They were displayed equally distanced between both of our beds, because they belonged to us both. I'm not really sure how this happened. But one night, me and my sister went to bed, but then my sister started tossing and turning. Calls out for my mom. My mom comes and she's like, what's wrong? Oh my God, I'm ready. This is part 2 of why I don't keep food in my room anymore. So my mom came into our room. She asked my sister, hey, what's wrong? She was like, oh, my body, I'm itchy. Mom's like, oh, maybe there's a mosquito. My sister's like, no, it's all over. She moves my sister out of the bed. Maybe it's your bed. She looks at her blanket. Oh my gosh, there's ants here. She shakes the blanket. Ants crawl everywhere. Under her pillow, ants. She lifts the mattress. Guys, her bed was infested with ants. Why? There was the faintest trail leading to our lollipops. My mom's like, hey, you get out of the bed. So I got out of bed, they checked my bed, was completely clean. There was one measly ant, literally one, one. My bed had no issues. Sister could not sleep there. So they ended up throwing our lollipops away and we were devastated. And my sister got a lot of unnecessary ant bites and I didn't get any. It's okay, because every time we go outside, I get swarmed with mosquitoes and she doesn't get bit at all.
I was engaged to the love of my life, but my sister met up with me and begged me to break it off. She said I had to leave him because they were in love. And he was just too afraid to break up with me because he didn't want to hurt me or my family. When I confronted my fiancé about my stepsister's accusations, he straight up denied it. He said she's been trying to come on to him for some time and he never mentioned it because he didn't want to ruin our relationship. He begged me not to believe her and so we continue how we were. My stepsister grew resentful and made nasty comments about how I was forcing a man who didn't even love me to marry me because I had low self-esteem. A month later, I get a text from my sister. It's a video of her and my fiancé sleeping together in my bed and multiple screenshots of him telling her he loved her, how he wished she was the girl he was marrying, and how he hated that I wouldn't let them be together. I was devastated and angry but decided to move in silence. I went home, grabbed all my stuff, removed all my money from my joint account, and moved in with my dad. After that, I sent all the screenshots to my family and his. He tried getting back with me multiple times, but I ended up blocking him when I found out he proposed to my sister with the same ring he gave me. I left it behind. Now they're getting married. I was extremely hurt to find out that my mom, step-siblings, and stepdad were attending the wedding. When I tried to express my feelings, they dismissed me and said it wasn't their fault that I got in the way of true love and made me out to be some sort of vindictive Disney villain. So I cut contact with them and I barely spoke to my mom in 5 years. Fast forward and I get engaged to my now husband. Due to COVID, we had a small ceremony and I also fell pregnant. My dad and stepmom have been amazing throughout all of this. She knitted a pair of booties and posted them on Facebook and tagged me about how she's excited for her grandbaby. My mom didn't know I was pregnant. Shortly after, I received a phone call to confirm. Since then, she's invited me and my husband over to her house multiple times. I've declined every single time for the obvious reason. My ex-fiancé and stepsister live there. The next time my mom called, I told her I didn't want them to keep inviting me over when they knew I would be forced to see my stepsister. I'm still hurt over what they did to me, and I told her I wasn't sure if I wanted people like them in my child's life. My mom was crying hysterically and kept saying I was being cruel and I couldn't deprive her of her first grandchild. She kept wailing about how I might be the only person in our family to even give her grandchildren. Am I wrong for trying to keep my mom out of my child's life?
My neighbors saw me naked. Story time. So sometimes a bitch sleeps naked because I get hot as fuck and because I heard a lot of good things about it. But anyways, this particular night, a bitch was naked and I woke up out of my slumber thirsty as fuck. Like I was literally feeling like SpongeBob when he went to Sandy's. But a bitch didn't put on clothes like a normal person because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning and no one was up. So I thought it would be a good idea to get out of bed and get water naked. So I'm getting my water and minding my own business. And my boyfriend's mom decides to come out of the room. And she knew I was in the kitchen, but she didn't know I was naked. And she starts walking towards me. And I was like, oh, hell no. I wasn't about to have my boyfriend's mom see me naked. You got me fucked up. So I thought it would be a good idea to run outside the back door, which leads to our backyard. But because I did that, my boyfriend's mom obviously thought it was suspicious. So she opens the back door and calls my name. So I run through the side of the house to get to the front of the garage door. My thought process at the time, I was gonna put in the garage code to get into the house through the garage. But that didn't happen. Part 2 gonna be funny. My neighbors saw me naked. Story time. So I ran through the side of the house to get to the garage door that's in the front of the house. Keep in mind, I am bare booty cheeks naked, running outside just so my boyfriend's mom didn't see me naked. So I get to the garage door and I put in the code. The code wasn't working. And I'm just standing there freaking out like, no. I was standing right here, butt naked, trying to put in this code. And the fence is pretty low, so if my neighbors came out, they would definitely see me naked. Which is exactly what happened. It was 3 a.m. and my neighbors came out. I guess I was being super loud. So my neighbors came out and they're like, hey, who's over there? And I literally stood there frozen as fuck. Shook. I looked like a deer in headlight. After I was done freaking out, I thought it would be a good idea to book it. So I started running towards the front door. That was the dumbest decision ever because if I didn't do that, my neighbors probably wouldn't have seen me naked. Once I decided to make a run for it, the outside light came on because the light is triggered by a motion sensor. Then the light flashed on me and my neighbor just stared at each other like. Then I ran for the front door, which happened to be unlocked.
When I was 15 years old, I found out I was pregnant with twins. My boyfriend at the time was 21 and had nothing to do with me. When he knew I wasn't going to give them up for adoption or abortion, he walked away. My mom was disappointed, but she helped me throughout my entire pregnancy and my delivery. A few weeks before my due date, my boyfriend texted me saying he broke up with this girl and that he wanted to get together and he was going to try to become the best dad he can. After the twins were born, it was blissful for a few moments until my mother started becoming toxic. She would take them places without my knowledge, and I would wake up to an empty house not knowing where my kids were. She started overriding my decisions, and when I confronted her, she told me she knew better because she was an adult, and I was in no position to contradict her. After years of this happening, I finally had enough, and I managed to get enough money to afford a hotel for a couple of nights while I decided what to do. I asked my aunt to watch my kids for a few days so I can go out and find a job. And when I returned to the motel, they were gone. All of them. When I returned back to the hotel, my twins and my aunt are missing. No phone call, no message, no nothing. Coincidentally, my mom calls and says that my best friend told her that my twins were missing, even though I told no one. She was yelling at me on the phone saying she was so worried and it was obviously my fault because I was so young. And at that point, I was really suspicious because I could hear my aunt in the background talking to my mom. So at that point, I knew she took them to my mom's house. As soon as I hung up on the phone, I went to the police station to file a report. For a few days, the police went undercover to try to get evidence, and there was many pictures showing my mom taking my twins to their house. When we took her to court, she said that they ran away due to my abuse and she found them in the middle of the street, which was obviously a complete lie. My mom had paid my boyfriend to give her false information that I was hurting my kids. After a long and gruesome battle, I won the case and my mom can't see them until they're 18. Even though my boyfriend at the time had a major part in it, he only has visitation limitations, which is once every 6 weeks. This happened 3 years ago when I was 18. I am now married to the love of my life and the best father in the world.
Sometimes the person that you fall in love with and have kids with is not the person that you think they are. This story was sent to me through my Instagram DMs from a girl named Shay. When Shay was 4 years old, she met this girl, and for the purpose of the video, we are going to call her Alice. They've been best friends forever, but there was always something a little off about Alice, and last year, Shay figured out what it was. Alice's mom was a Polish ice dancer that moved to Amsterdam, and long story short, she fell in love with this guy that she barely knew and had Alice. Shortly after Alice was born, they had another kid named Rosie, and again, with the same guy that she did not know what he was capable of. When Alice was 3, her mom started entering her in beauty pageants just for fun. Then she started winning all of these pageants, and her dad noticed that she had this potential. After Alice won her 3rd competition, her mom overheard a conversation that her dad was having on the phone. The father was saying something along the lines of, "I think that she would make a man very, very happy." And the man on the phone asked, "What about the other one?" And the dad responded, "She's not of age yet." Alice's mom did not know what to do, but she knew she had to get away. It's a long story, I'm running out of time, but part 2 is coming right now. Part 2 of Alice's dad, literally trying to sell her to a man. Also, this is a baby picture of Alice. So Alice's mom overheard the conversation of her dad literally trying to sell her. And so she was like, oh my god, I gotta get out of here. She didn't really know what was going on, but day by day, she started packing very slowly so that he wouldn't notice that they were leaving. So one night, Alice's mom heard these strange men talking outside of Alice's bedroom door. They said, "Don't worry about it. We'll tell her mother that she died in the hospital last night after she stopped breathing." So it was go time because they were literally about to take her. So while the men were in the lounge planning on how to take Alice, Alice's mom woke her up and said, "We have to go." They quickly packed a bag and decided to come back the next morning to get Rosie, but that was a big mistake. So that night they slept at a cheap motel, and then the next morning they called the police. But the police said they couldn't do anything without solid evidence. So they take matters into their own hands and go back to the house to go get Rosie. They managed to sneak past the front door and go around the house to get to Rosie's window, but when they get there and they look inside, Rosie is laying on the floor in a pool of her own blood.
I'm sorry it's so long, but part 3 is the last part and it's coming right now. Part 3 of Alice's dad trying to sell her to men when she was 4 years old. So sadly, Alice and her mom did not come back in time because Rosie was dead. Rosie was lying there in her bedroom in a pool of her own blood, and then they started freaking out and they had to leave because somebody was coming. So they rushed back to the motel and called the police, and they say, you have to go back to our house and check it because there is evidence there.